Speaking of weapons, the US and Germany provide nearly 99% of arms and munitions to Israel, with, of course, the US being the biggest supplier. What are the legal consequences of that under international law?
So there are a few consequences. Under humanitarian law, there's an obligation on all countries to ensure respect for humanitarian law by other countries fighting in armed conflict. That means if it's within your power to influence the conduct of another country, then you have to take all feasible steps to ensure that you promote compliance with humanitarian law by that other country. Now, if you're exporting weapons to a country like Israel, and you know that Israel is routinely violating humanitarian law when using those weapons. So, for example, if Israel uses large, high explosive bombs supplied by the United States in densely populated urban areas where we know there are civilians in the area, then it's very hard to reconcile the use of those weapons with complying with humanitarian law. So in those circumstances, it's clearly within the United States' power to withhold those weapons, to suspend or terminate arms and munitions transfers to Israel because Israel is not using them responsibly and is not using them in compliance with humanitarian law. For other countries who are parties to the arms trade treaty, like many European countries, there are then additional obligations under that treaty to not to export weapons if they would be used to violate humanitarian law. And even if you are not certain that they would be used to violate the law, to commit war crimes, then there's still an obligation not to transfer those weapons if there's an overriding risk that they would be used to violate humanitarian law. So there are a number of protective provisions preventing the export of weapons precisely to prevent violations of humanitarian law. I'd also mention under international criminal law, there can be individual criminal liability for anybody who is complicit in the transfer of a weapon in circumstances where it's known that they would be used to violate humanitarian law. So that could also apply to United States officials if there are war crimes investigations in other countries or before the International Criminal Court.
And also in the UK, we know that British-made spare parts continue to sustain Israel's F-35 fleet. Could there also be criminal liability for UK leaders if they do not act to prevent such transfers?
So arms transfers, the law on arms transfers applies not only to complete weapons or munitions which have already been built, but also to the export of parts and components. So in the F-35 fighter jet example, many countries are contributing parts to the construction of those jets, which are then assembled and exported to countries like Israel. So there's an obligation on every country, that industrial chain building those weapon systems to ensure that they do respect the constraints on arms transfers to ensure humanitarian law is not violated. So again, if there's evidence that F-35 fighter jets are being involved in indiscriminate bombings, which cause excessive civilian casualties, then certainly that's also something which could attract individual criminal responsibility as well.